The first diplomatic ship from the Galactic Council arrived at the edge of Earth's solar system on a Tuesday morning in 2157. Ambassador Telos adjusted his silver robes as he watched the blue planet spin slowly on the main screen. 3 other species stood behind him on the bridge, each representing different corners of the galaxy. They had traveled for weeks to reach this remote system after detecting humanity's first successful faster-than-light voyage 6 months earlier. Every new species that achieved interstellar travel received the same welcome. The Council would arrive with gifts of knowledge, technology, and friendship. Most civilizations eagerly joined the galactic community within days. Some took weeks to overcome their fears. None had ever simply ignored them completely. The first transmission went out on all frequencies. Standard greeting protocols in 17 different languages, followed by mathematical sequences that any intelligent species would recognize. The response was immediate but unexpected. Earth's orbital defense platforms activated, painting the Council ship with targeting lasers while broadcasting a simple message on repeat. Unknown vessel, you are entering restricted space. Please maintain current distance and await further instructions. Ambassador Telos frowned at the cold professionalism in the human voice. Most species either panicked or celebrated when first contacted. These humans sounded like they were directing traffic. He ordered his communications officer to try again, this time with more detailed explanations of the Council's purpose and peaceful intentions. Hours passed with no response beyond the same automated warning. The Council ship remained at the edge of the system, well beyond the range of any primitive weapons. Through their telescopes, they could see busy shipping lanes between Earth and Mars, massive orbital stations around several planets, and what appeared to be extensive mining operations in the asteroid belt. This was clearly an advanced civilization, not some backward world afraid of alien contact. Dr. Amara Singh watched the alien ship from the observation deck of Luna Station. As Earth's chief xenobiologist, she had spent years preparing for this moment. The ship was beautiful in its alien design, with flowing curves that suggested a species comfortable with both art and technology. She counted at least 4 different architectural styles in its construction, indicating a multi-species alliance. The World Council had been debating Earth's response for 3 days. President Liu favored cautious engagement, while Defense Minister Ross argued for complete isolation until humanity was better prepared. The compromise they reached satisfied no one but reflected humanity's current reality. Earth simply was not ready for galactic politics. The climate wars had ended only 50 years ago, leaving scars that still shaped human society. The planet had barely survived the conflict between the Eastern Alliance and the Western Federation. Billions had died before sanity prevailed and the unified world government was established. The survivors had sworn never again to let politics divide humanity when survival was at stake. Admiral Rex reviewed the latest intelligence reports from his office on Mars Command. The alien ship showed no signs of leaving, but neither did it attempt to penetrate Earth's defensive perimeter. His analysts had identified weapon systems on the vessel, though they appeared designed more for defense than conquest. Still, humanity had learned hard lessons about trusting strangers with superior technology. The second week brought more ships. Not an invasion fleet, but clearly a diplomatic convoy with representatives from across the galaxy. They established a holding pattern beyond Neptune's orbit and began broadcasting cultural exchanges, mathematical theorems, and artistic displays. It was exactly the kind of peaceful first contact that humanity's scientists had dreamed about for centuries. The response from Earth remained the same automated message on repeat. Ambassador Telos grew frustrated with each passing day. His species, the Drakmari, had initiated first contact with over 200 civilizations during their 3,000 years in space. Never had they encountered such stubborn isolation from a clearly advanced species. The humans possessed technology that rivaled many council members, yet they refused even basic communication. The alien convoy's daily transmissions became increasingly sophisticated. They shared star charts showing safe hyperspace routes, scientific data about neighboring systems, and warnings about various galactic hazards. The transmissions painted a picture of a vast galactic community where thousands of species traded knowledge, resources, and friendship across the stars. From her laboratory on Luna Station, Dr. Singh decoded every transmission. The alien data was fascinating and terrifying in equal measure. The galaxy was far more crowded and dangerous than humanity had imagined. Ancient empires rose and fell across the centuries. Wars had consumed entire sectors. Plague ships wandered the void, spreading diseases that could wipe out civilizations. Most disturbing were the references to something called the Void Swarm. Though the aliens seemed to consider it ancient history, Earth's silence was not born of fear or ignorance. Humanity's leaders understood exactly what joining the galactic community would mean. They would become junior partners in someone else's political system, dependent on alien goodwill for protection and prosperity. Earth had resources that older civilizations coveted, and humanity had learned that generosity often came with hidden costs. The third week brought a personal message from Ambassador Tellus himself. He appeared on screen as a tall, elegant being, with silver skin and large dark eyes. His voice carried genuine confusion as he asked why humanity chose isolation over friendship. He offered everything from advanced medical technology to defensive alliances, painting a picture of a galaxy eager to welcome Earth into its embrace. President Liu watched the message from her office in Geneva. The alien ambassador seemed sincere, and his offers were genuinely tempting. Earth's scientists would kill for access to their medical databases, and their defensive technology could protect human colonies from any threat. Yet something in her gut warned against accepting gifts that seemed too good to be true. The answer came from an unexpected source. Deep space monitoring stations began detecting massive energy signatures from the galactic core. Something was moving out there, something that made even the massive Council fleet look insignificant by comparison. The automated systems tagged it as potentially hostile based on its energy profile and trajectory. Admiral Rex called an emergency meeting of the Defense Council. The alien convoy had been trying to contact Earth for 3 weeks, offering friendship and technology. Now something else was coming from the depths of space, and the timing felt more than coincidental. Humanity had survived by being suspicious of coincidences. The decision was unanimous. Earth would continue its silence until humanity better understood what was coming. The galaxy's calls would remain unanswered, not out of rudeness, but out of an abundance of caution that had kept humanity alive through its darkest hours. Sometimes the smartest response to an outstretched hand was to keep your own hands on your weapons. The agricultural world of Kepler Prime had been feeding 3 star systems for over 2 centuries. Its vast grain fields stretched across continents, tended by 6 billion farmers and their families. The planet was peaceful, prosperous, and completely unprepared for what emerged from the void between stars. The attack began at dawn on the planet's largest continent. Massive biomechanical shapes descended from orbit like falling mountains, each one larger than a city and pulsing with organic light. They struck the surface with enough force to trigger earthquakes, then immediately began converting everything they touched into more of themselves. The Planetary Defense Force managed to get off exactly 3 distress calls before their communications grid was consumed. The messages reached the Galactic Council's emergency network within hours, but by then there was nothing left to save. Where Kepler Prime had once orbited its yellow star, only debris and the fading heat signatures of a dead world remained. Ambassador Telos received the news while still maintaining his vigil at the edge of Earth's solar system. The report made no sense at first. Entire planets did not simply vanish overnight. Even the most advanced weapons in the galaxy required days to sterilize a world, and the energy signatures would be visible across multiple star systems. The investigation fleet that arrived at Kepler Prime found something far worse than destruction. The planet had not been destroyed but consumed, converted into a writhing mass of biomechanical tissue that stretched across the entire orbit. Sensor readings detected billions of individual organisms working in perfect harmony, like cells in a vast living machine. Admiral Rex was reviewing supply reports in his office on Mars when the encrypted transmission arrived. Earth's Deep Space Monitoring Network had been tracking unusual energy patterns for weeks, and now those patterns had a name. The alien distress calls were automatically translated by Earth's artificial intelligence systems, painting a picture of terror that needed no interpretation. The void swarm had returned after 1,000 years of dormancy. Ancient records from the oldest civilizations spoke of them in whispers, describing biomechanical horrors that consumed everything in their path. Most scholars had dismissed the stories as mythology, but the evidence floating in Kepler Prime's orbit was impossible to deny. Dr. Singh studied the alien data streams from her laboratory on Luna Station. The translated records described creatures that defied every natural law, organisms that could survive in the vacuum of space and convert any form of matter into more of themselves. They reproduced by conquest, turning entire civilizations into extensions of their collective consciousness. The pattern of attacks quickly became clear. The swarm targeted agricultural worlds first, consuming their biomass to fuel rapid reproduction. Then they moved to industrial centers, converting manufacturing facilities into hive structures that pumped out more biomechanical soldiers. Finally, they consumed the population centers, adding billions of minds to their collective intelligence. President Liu called an emergency session of the World Council as reports flooded in from across the galaxy. World after world fell silent as the swarm spread outward from the galactic core like a plague. The aliens who had been so eager to welcome humanity into their community were now sending increasingly desperate pleas for assistance. The Galactic Council's military response was swift but ineffective. Their fleets engaged the swarm at the edge of civilized space, winning initial victories against the advanced scouts. But every destroyed swarm unit was quickly replaced by 10 more, and their biomechanical ships seemed to adapt to each new weapon. Within hours of first contact, Admiral Rex watched the tactical displays with growing concern. The swarm's advance was methodical and unstoppable. They consumed resources faster than any biological organism should be able to process them, and their reproduction rate defied all known laws of physics. Even more disturbing, they seemed to be learning from each engagement, developing new tactics and defenses at an impossible pace. The first human colonies to report swarm contact were the mining stations in the Centauri system. The workers there had been watching the distant battles through their telescopes, never imagining the horror would reach them so quickly. Their final transmission described ship-sized organisms emerging from hyperspace, moving with predatory grace toward the defenseless stations. Defense Minister Ross had been preparing for this moment since the first alien ships arrived at Earth's border. Humanity's military doctrine was built around a simple principle learned during the climate wars: the best defense was overwhelming offense delivered before the enemy expected it. Every day of Earth's isolation had been spent preparing for the war that was now upon them. The human fleet that had been secretly assembled over the past 50 years was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. 200 capital ships armed with weapons that violated several interstellar treaties, supported by manufacturing facilities that could replace losses faster than any known military system. Earth had not been ignoring the galaxy's calls out of fear, but out of a desperate need to be ready for exactly this scenario. The order came down from the World Council at 14 o'clock Geneva Standard Time. Earth would break its silence and offer assistance to the galactic community. Not as supplicants begging for membership, but as equals bringing the tools necessary to end the swarm threat permanently. Ambassador Telos nearly fell from his command chair when the transmission arrived on the emergency frequency. The human voice was calm and professional, completely at odds with the chaos engulfing the galaxy. Admiral Rex spoke directly to the Council's emergency command center, his words carrying the weight of a civilization that had spent decades preparing for war. "This is Admiral Rex of the Terran Defense Force. We have monitored your situation and analyzed the threat parameters. Humanity formally requests permission to assist in the defense of the galaxy. Our fleet will arrive at your coordinates in 72 hours. Please prepare docking facilities for 200 capital ships and support vessels. The Council's response was immediate and desperate. Any assistance would be welcome, no matter how small. They had lost 40 worlds in the past month, and their remaining fleets were being pushed back on all fronts. Even a few dozen ships might buy them enough time to evacuate the core worlds. 3 days later, the first human warships emerged from hyperspace at the edge of Council territory. The alien commanders who had been expecting a token relief force instead witnessed the arrival of the largest military fleet in recorded galactic history. Earth had not just answered the galaxy's call for help, but had arrived armed for total war. The human warship that materialized first was larger than any vessel in the Galactic Council's combined fleet. The massive dreadnought Retribution stretched nearly 2 kilometers from bow to stern, its hull bristling with weapon systems that defied easy classification. More ships followed, each one a masterpiece of military engineering that spoke to decades of careful preparation. Ambassador Telos watched in stunned silence as the human fleet took defensive positions around the Nexus defense platform. 200 capital ships arranged themselves in perfect formation, their movements coordinated with a precision that suggested either extensive training or artificial intelligence control. Behind them came support vessels, mobile shipyards, and what appeared to be entire asteroid mining operations converted into mobile weapons platforms. The flagship's docking bay was large enough to hold 3 Council corvettes. Ambassador Telos walked through corridors that felt more like city streets than ship passages, noting the subtle signs of a military culture that took warfare very seriously. Every surface was functional. Every design choice optimized for combat efficiency over aesthetic appeal. Admiral Rex met the alien delegation in a conference room that doubled as a tactical command center. The human leader was smaller than most Council species, but carried himself with the quiet confidence of someone accustomed to being obeyed without question. Behind him stood officers representing every branch of Earth's military, their uniforms bearing insignia that suggested a complex hierarchy built around actual combat experience. The presentation began with a simple, holographic display showing Earth's solar system. What the aliens had assumed was a single inhabited world was actually a fortress system with defensive installations on every major body. The Moon housed the largest military shipyard in known space, while Mars served as a training ground, where soldiers prepared for combat in every conceivable environment. General Park activated the next display, showing weapon specifications that made several alien officers step backward involuntarily. Kinetic bombardment systems capable of cracking continents, plasma weapons that burned hotter than stellar cores, quantum disruptors that could unravel matter at the subatomic level. Each system was demonstrated through combat recordings that left no doubt about their effectiveness. The human arsenal was the product of a species that had nearly destroyed itself through warfare, then learned to channel that destructive capacity toward external threats. Every asteroid in the Sol system had been converted into a weapons platform. Jupiter's moons housed manufacturing facilities that could produce starships faster than most civilizations could build ground vehicles. Ambassador Telos struggled to process the scale of human military preparation. His own species had fought wars across multiple star systems, but nothing approaching this level of industrial militarization. Earth had turned its entire solar system into a weapon pointed at the galaxy, yet had chosen to keep that weapon hidden. Until the moment it was desperately needed, the defensive capabilities were even more impressive than the offensive ones. Admiral Rex explained humanity's military doctrine with the patience of a teacher addressing students. Earth did not fight wars to achieve political objectives or territorial gains. When humans went to war, they fought to permanently eliminate threats to their continued existence. The AI-controlled defense networks were perhaps the most terrifying revelation. Autonomous systems capable of coordinating the defense of entire star systems without human oversight, learning from each engagement and adapting faster than any organic commander could manage. The demonstrations showed mock battles where human fleets defeated forces 10 times Their size, through superior coordination and tactical flexibility, Dr. Singh presented the scientific advances that had made such military dominance possible. Humanity's understanding of physics had been driven by military necessity, leading to breakthroughs in energy generation, materials science, and artificial intelligence that surpassed most galactic civilizations. Earth scientists had not been pursuing knowledge for its own sake, but as tools for survival. The manufacturing capacity was staggering. Human shipyards could replace the entire Galactic Council fleet in less than 6 months, working around the clock with automated systems that required minimal organic oversight. Every human ship was designed for easy repair and rapid replacement, ensuring that losses in battle would be temporary setbacks rather than permanent defeats. Ambassador Telos found himself reconsidering everything he thought he knew about human nature. The species that had ignored diplomatic overtures for months was not primitive or xenophobic, but methodically preparing for a war they seemed to know was coming. Earth's silence had not been born of fear, but of a strategic patience that allowed them to choose the time and manner of their entry into galactic affairs. The tactical briefings continued for hours, revealing layer after layer of human military preparation. Specialized units trained for boarding actions against biomechanical opponents. Weapons designed specifically to disrupt organic technology. Battle tactics developed through decades of computer simulations and war games that modeled every conceivable enemy. The human fleet's true size became apparent when Admiral Rex activated the long-range sensors. The 200 ships at the Nexus platform were just the advance force. Behind them came manufacturing ships, mobile shipyards, and an entire logistics network capable of supporting extended military operations across multiple star systems. Earth had not just sent a fleet, but an entire military civilization. The alien officers exchanged nervous glances as they realized the implications. Humanity possessed the largest military force in galactic history, built in secret over the course of decades. They had chosen to reveal this power not for conquest or intimidation, but in response to a threat that endangered all sentient life. The galaxy's newest members had become its most powerful protectors overnight. General Park concluded the briefing with a demonstration of human manufacturing capabilities. Within hours of arriving at the Nexus platform, human engineers were upgrading alien ships with advanced weapons systems and defensive technologies. The process was so efficient that entire fleets could be retrofitted faster than most species could perform basic maintenance. The message was clear to everyone in the room. Earth had not joined the galactic community as supplicants seeking protection, but as guardians offering salvation. Humanity possessed the tools necessary to defeat the swarm threat, and they were willing to share those tools with anyone willing to fight alongside them. Ambassador Telos left the human flagship with a new understanding of the species that had ignored his diplomatic overtures. Earth's silence had not been rudeness or fear, but the quiet preparation of a civilization that understood the true nature of survival in a hostile galaxy. The galaxy had called for Earth's friendship, and humanity had answered with the gift of total war. The Void Swarm's main force arrived at the Proxima defense line like a living asteroid field. Thousands of biomechanical ships ranging from fighter-sized organisms to high vessels, the size of moons, moved in perfect synchronization toward the last major population center in the Outer Rim. Their approach was methodical and terrifying, each vessel pulsing with organic light that suggested a hunger beyond normal understanding. Admiral Rex coordinated the defense from his command ship, Sovereign, watching the tactical displays with the calm focus of someone who had been preparing for this moment his entire career. The human fleet formed the center of the defensive line, their weapons already charging as targeting computers calculated firing solutions for the approaching nightmare. Allied ships from a dozen species flanked the human formation, their crews fighting alongside weapons technology they barely understood. The first contact came when swarm scout ships entered extreme weapons range. Human plasma cannons opened fire at distances that made alien gunners shake their heads in disbelief. The energy beams reached across space like fingers of stellar fire, vaporizing swarm scouts before they could transmit tactical data back to the main force. It was a level of precision shooting that spoke to decades of training and superior fire control systems. The swarm's response was immediate and overwhelming. Biomechanical fighters swarmed toward the human line like angry insects, their organic hulls adapting to weapons fire even as they died. For every swarm unit destroyed, two more seemed to take its place. The creatures were learning from each engagement, developing countermeasures at a speed that defied all known laws of evolution. Commander Beth Torres led the first boarding action against a swarm hive ship. Her powered armor squad punched through the enemy's biomechanical hull with shaped charges, then fought their way through corridors that pulsed like living arteries. The close combat was brutal and alien, fought against creatures that seemed part machine and part nightmare. Human plasma weapons cut through the swarm's defenders like fire through paper, establishing tactics that would be copied throughout the galaxy. The battle raged across 6 star systems, simultaneously as the swarm split their forces to attack multiple targets. Human fleets engaged the enemy wherever they appeared, their superior mobility allowing them to respond to threats faster than traditional military doctrine suggested was possible. The artificial intelligence networks that controlled human fleet movements proved their worth, coordinating attacks across light years of space with split-second timing. General Park watched the tactical situation develop from Mars Command, noting patterns in the swarm's behavior that suggested a central intelligence directing their movements. The creatures were not simply following programmed responses but adapting their strategies based on human tactics. It was like fighting an opponent that could evolve new instincts in real time, learning from every mistake faster than any organic mind could process information. The turning point came when human engineers deployed their most devastating weapons. Planet-killer missiles designed during the climate wars were modified to target swarm hive clusters, their nuclear warheads replaced with quantum disruptors that could unravel biomechanical tissue at the molecular level. The weapons worked perfectly, erasing entire swarm formations from existence in flashes of impossible light. Dr. Singh worked frantically in her laboratory aboard the Science Vessel Discovery, analyzing captured swarm specimens while the battle raged around her. The creatures were more complex than any natural organism had a right to be, their cellular structure incorporating both organic and mechanical components in ways that violated several fundamental laws of biology. Yet there had to be a weakness, some critical vulnerability that could be exploited. The breakthrough came from an unexpected source. While studying the neural tissue from a destroyed swarm fighter, Dr. Singh discovered quantum entanglement patterns that suggested the creatures were linked through subspace communications networks. The hive mind that controlled billions of individual organisms relied on instantaneous information transfer across galactic distances. But that same network could be weaponized against them. Human scientists worked around the clock to develop countermeasures based on Dr. Singh's discovery. If the swarm's greatest strength was their collective consciousness, then severing that connection would turn their coordinated formations into confused mobs. The theory was elegant, but implementing it required electromagnetic pulse generators powerful enough to disrupt quantum entanglement across entire star systems. The new weapons were deployed during the Battle of Centauri Station, where a swarm hive fleet had cornered the remnants of 3 alien civilizations. Human ships positioned themselves at precise coordinates around the enemy formation, then activated their quantum disruptors simultaneously. The effect was immediate and devastating. Thousands of swarm ships suddenly lost coordination, their perfect formations dissolving into chaos as individual units fought without central guidance. Admiral Rex pressed the advantage ruthlessly, ordering his fleets to attack the confused swarm forces before they could adapt to their isolation. Human ships poured fire into the enemy formations, destroying creatures that had seemed invincible just hours before. The battle became a rout as alien fleets joined the assault, finally seeing hope of victory against an enemy that had seemed unstoppable. The war continued for months as human fleets hunted down scattered swarm survivors across the galaxy. Each engagement revealed new aspects of the enemy's capabilities, but also new weaknesses that could be exploited. The creatures were formidable opponents when fighting as a collective, but individual swarm units were surprisingly vulnerable to conventional weapons once separated from their hive mind. The final battle took place at the galactic core, where the last swarm hive ships had retreated to protect their primary breeding facility. The structure was a biomechanical planet larger than Earth, pulsing with the combined consciousness of trillions of individual organisms. It was the heart of the swarm's collective intelligence, and destroying it would effectively lobotomize any survivors. Human fleets surrounded the facility while engineers prepared the largest quantum disruptor ever constructed. The weapon was designed to sever every entanglement connection within a light-year radius, essentially performing surgery on the fabric of space-time itself. The risks were enormous, but the alternative was allowing the swarm to rebuild their numbers for another assault on civilized space. The detonation was visible from a dozen star systems, a pulse of energy that briefly outshone the galactic core itself. When the light faded, the swarm hive planet was gone, replaced by drifting debris and the fading echoes of a collective consciousness that had ruled the galaxy's nightmares for 1,000 years. The surviving swarm units across the galaxy suddenly went dormant. Their shared intelligence severed permanently. Admiral Rex stood on the bridge of his flagship as the last enemy signals faded from the tactical displays. The war was over, won through a combination of human military might and scientific innovation that had turned the galaxy's greatest threat into scattered organic debris. Earth had kept its promise to end the war permanently, though the cost had been measured in entire star systems consumed before the final victory. The ruins of 17 worlds bore silent testimony to the Swarm War's devastation. Once thriving civilizations had been reduced to lifeless rock and twisted metal, their populations consumed to fuel an alien hunger that had nearly devoured the galaxy. Yet from this destruction arose a new order, one built around humanity's unexpected emergence as the galaxy's primary military power. President Liu addressed the reformed Galactic Council from Earth's new orbital capital, Haven Station. The massive structure housed representatives from over 300 species, its rotating sections providing appropriate gravity and atmosphere for beings adapted to wildly different environments. The diversity was staggering, yet all eyes focused on the human leader whose species had saved them from extinction. The speech was simple and direct, reflecting humanity's preference for practical solutions over political rhetoric. Earth had not ignored the galaxy's original diplomatic overtures out of arrogance or xenophobia, but out of a grim understanding that peaceful civilizations rarely survived first contact with hostile forces. Every hour spent in isolation had been an hour spent preparing to protect not just humanity, but all sentient life that might someday need defending. Ambassador Telos sat in the Drakmari delegation, reflecting on how completely his understanding of humanity had changed. The species he had once dismissed as isolationist primitives had proven to be the galaxy's most sophisticated military power. Their weapons technology surpassed anything in the Council's databases, while their manufacturing capacity could outfit entire civilizations faster than most species could repair battle damage. The reconstruction efforts revealed the true scope of human industrial might. Shipyards that had once produced weapons of war now churned out colony ships and terraforming equipment. Human engineers worked alongside alien scientists to rebuild devastated worlds, their advanced technology making previously impossible projects routine. Entire star systems were restored to habitability within months rather than the decades such work had traditionally required, Admiral Rex maintained. His headquarters on the command ship Eternal Vigilance, now permanently stationed at the edge of galactic civilization. His fleets patrolled the void beyond known space, their sensors constantly sweeping for any sign of threats that might emerge from the darkness between galaxies. The human military had evolved from a planetary defense force into something unprecedented in galactic history, a standing army dedicated to protecting species that could never adequately repay their debt. The new defensive doctrine was built around lessons learned during the Swarm War. human battle stations appeared at strategic points throughout the galaxy, each one capable of coordinating the defense of entire sectors. The stations were crewed by volunteers from dozens of species, but their weapons and command systems remained under human control. Trust was a luxury that civilizations could not afford when survival was at stake. Dr. Singh established the Galaxy Defense Research Institute on Luna Station, where scientists from across known space worked to understand and counter potential future threats. The swarm had been defeated, but their technology revealed disturbing possibilities about what other horrors might exist in the void between galaxies. Preparation for unknown enemies became humanity's greatest contribution to galactic civilization. The economic transformation was as dramatic as the military one. Human manufacturing techniques were shared freely with allied species, but always under careful supervision that ensured the technology could not be turned against its creators. Earth's industrial capacity had become the foundation for galactic prosperity, producing everything from medical equipment to interstellar communication networks. The political structure that emerged reflected humanity's reluctance to rule others directly. Earth held no formal authority over alien governments, but their voice carried the weight of military supremacy and economic dependence. When humans made suggestions about defensive preparations or resource allocation, other species listened with the attention usually reserved for divine commandments. General Park oversized the training programs that transformed alien militaries from ceremonial honor guards into actual fighting forces. Human tactical doctrine was taught at military academies throughout the galaxy, while human weapon systems were integrated into every major fleet. The goal was not to create human-controlled armies, but to ensure that every species could contribute meaningfully to their own defense. The cultural changes were perhaps the most profound. The galaxy's various civilizations had spent millennia believing that technological advancement naturally led to peaceful coexistence. Humanity's example demonstrated that survival often required the capacity for overwhelming violence, delivered by those willing to bear the moral burden of necessary destruction. The memorial worlds served as reminders of what was at stake. 17. Planets remained as they had been left by the swarm, their surfaces preserved as monuments to the billions who had died. Human ships maintained eternal vigil over these graveyards, ensuring that the price of unpreparedness would never be forgotten by future generations. The Deep Space Monitoring Network expanded constantly, pushing human sensors further into the void beyond the galaxy's edge. Unknown regions were mapped by automated probes equipped with the most advanced detection equipment humanity could produce. The universe was vast and largely unexplored, and experience suggested that not everything waiting in the darkness would prove friendly to organic life. Ambassador Telos often wondered what would have happened if humanity had accepted his original diplomatic overtures. Would Earth have become just another council member, contributing their resources to the collective defense that had proven so inadequate? The galaxy had been fortunate that humans chose isolation and preparation over immediate integration and false security. The new generation of alien leaders grew up in a galaxy where human protection was simply a fact of existence, like gravity or the speed of light. They studied human history in school, learning about the climate wars and the techniques that had forged a military culture capable of defending civilization itself. The lessons were sobering but necessary for species that had nearly lost everything to forces they had never imagined. Admiral Rex stood on the observation deck of his flagship, watching the stars wheel slowly past as his fleet maintained its patrol along the galactic rim. Somewhere in the darkness beyond, other threats were undoubtedly stirring. Ancient evils that had slumbered for millennia, hostile civilizations from distant galaxies, or perhaps something entirely new that would test humanity's capacity for violence in defense of innocence. The galaxy's calls had finally been answered, not by diplomats or explorers, but by warriors who understood that the greatest act of friendship was sometimes the willingness to kill their friends' enemies. Earth had arrived armed to the teeth, and the universe was a safer place for those who preferred peace to the alternatives that lurked in the spaces between the stars.